Welcome to Rise Above, the podcast where we turn pain into purpose, struggles into strength. I'm Jacqueline. My story has been anything but easy. From loss, trauma to healing, growth, and finding my healing journey. Although this is my story, I hope that you can find pieces of it that you can resonate with and utilize that for your own healing journey. These are moments that shape you, the lessons that strengthen you, and the light that continues to pull you forward. This space is real, raw, and relatable. Trigger warning. Today's episode is about the day that changed everything in my life. So it's going to be conversations on murder, trauma, and if at any point you feel that it's too much, please take care of yourself. Watch at your own convenience. Don't force yourself to watch it. I want you to make sure that you're putting yourself first because it's going to be a heavy content day. And return when you feel ready. We're going to talk about PTSD and grief. So I really want you to, honor yourself and what you can tolerate because it can be very triggering. So please make sure that you're watching at your own discretion and you're listening. Viewers' discretion is advised. Okay. So some days of our lives turn into before and afters. We don't know how it happens, when it happens, or why it happens, but it just does. And maybe some people can relate to that. So for me, March 10th, 2011 changed everything for me. That was the day that I witnessed my fiance at the time be murdered in front of me alongside my daughter. Um, that day will forever stay with me no matter where I go. It was by far one of the worst days of my life. It took everything that I thought was trustworthy in the world and shattered it into pieces. Um, Time stopped for quite some time. I was living on autopilot for many, many years. Yes, I said it, years. Um, what came after that wasn't just grief, it was internal emotional struggle, having to deal with PTSD, although I didn't know at the time that what I was experiencing was PTSD. It was a different kind of survival. It was like a switch turned on, and it was no longer about what I was experiencing because of that day. It was about being a mom and taking care of my daughter because she experienced the same thing. As a result of that, I suffer from PTSD, and I will say I didn't know then that it was PTSD. It's only now, while I'm in the healing journey, that I was able to say or acknowledge that it was post traumatic stress disorder. Um, and what is PTSD? And I'm going to give you the actual definition of what PTSD is, and then I'm going to share what I relate to PTSD. So PTSD is post traumatic disorder. Happens after you experience or witness something deeply distressing or life threatening. It's not just remembering what happened, it's reliving it. Your body and mind stays trapped in survival mode even when the danger is long gone. So what does that mean? I'm sure that most of you have heard that when you experience something traumatic, you either go into a traumatic response. So it can be fight, flight, fawn, which I just recently learned about fawn, or you run. So for me, or freeze, I'm sorry, you freeze. So for me, I froze in the moment. My reaction when I realized what was going on was to stay put and protect my daughter. So what comes after seeing that and your reaction to the trauma that you've experienced is freeze? I had a lot of guilt. I had a lot of guilt because I felt that I could have helped him. And although I knew that what I did in protecting my daughter was what I was supposed to do, um, but I had survivor's guilt. I had survivor's guilt, and it played in my mind a lot. Like why didn't I yell his name, or why didn't I say he was coming? But it all happened so fast. So for a little bit context, we used to live in projects in Gun Hill Road, and that was a regular morning where we were going to take my daughter to school. And the night before, this person was actually watching, and I did tell him the night before, like, did you notice that person in the stairwell? And he was like, it was probably just somebody smoking or whatever. We just went on about a day. So the next day, that same person was in front of the elevator, and as I turned to go to the elevator, I paused. Not because I saw anything, but because I was like, I'm not gonna go to the front of the elevator without him. And and I'll talk about this in another episode. He was very controlling. So if I would have went over there, I knew that he was gonna be like, "Oh, but why you go over there? You was talking to him. What he told you something." So I was not. I was trying to avoid all of that. It was God's sake. It was 7 o'clock in the morning, and we were taking my daughter to school, and that was not something that I wanted to deal with at that time. So where the guy was positioned, he couldn't see him, but he could see me and my daughter. The moment that he saw my daughter and myself, he started walking. So me being the person that I am and knowing how my fiance was, I was like, I cannot, look at this person directly in his eyes. But for some reason, I had to. So by the time he got to me, our eyes locked, and I put my head down. When I put my head down, I noticed that he had a gun in his right hand. And when he went around, it was like from that moment on, it was slow motion. So he walked, and my vision was walking with him. It just like kept with him, and he lunged. So once he lunged, I hovered over my daughter. I covered my daughter, so I thought I covered her. Um, and the way that I covered her, she actually saw absolutely everything. I didn't see everything. I saw when he lunged. I covered my daughter, heard the shot, um, um, smelled the gun smoke. In my mind, it was I needed to hover over my daughter and protect my daughter. This man is going to kill me and my daughter because I just saw him full blown, no everything. So once I heard the gunshot and smelled the smoke, I turned around and he was laying on the floor. And so that moment forever plays in my mind. And after that, I don't know where my daughter went to. I know that I called my brother at some point, but apparently I thought I hung up the phone. I didn't hang up the phone, so he heard the messages. I left the voicemail accidentally, screaming and saying. And I only know about the voicemail because he told me about it. And then I remember going into the apartment to get the house phone to call 911. I called 911, and then the police came and they didn't pronounce him dead at the scene. They were so consumed with wanting to find out if some person that was in the area was the person that they took me down. At this point, I honestly didn't realize where my daughter was. Um, I didn't realize that the neighbors had came out. I didn't realize anything. I was in shock. I froze. I was in shock. I was moving. I was answering questions. I remember it was two police officers, uniformed police officers that arrived to the scene. Then once the detectives came down, they took me down, and I was like, no, that's not the person. Then they took me to the precinct that was nearby on Laconia, and that is where I was told by one of the detectives. I remember I had two detectives. One detective Rodriguez, the other one I can't remember. His name was a white tall man. He was the one that told me that he had passed away, and I remember screaming. And I remember him telling me, "Don't scream." And the Detective Rodriguez, was like, "Let her. Like she just. Do you not realize what she just went through?" And I don't know if it was the voice message. I don't know how my brother and my sister-in-law knew that I was at that precinct. I just know that when I stepped out, they were there. And I can't remember if my daughter was with me at that time or what happened. I know that apparently one of the neighbors, one of the neighbors had taken my daughter into their home. God bless her soul. Um, and was holding her there while everything had transpired. And I believe I had to go back and get her. And then before I went to go get her, I had to go into Jacoby Hospital and go see the body, which I did. A few days later, I had to identify the body again because that's a thing that they do in New York. You have to go identify the body, regardless if you were the witness, especially if you're the fiance. For context, we lived together for 7 years. We were together for 7 years. And then after that, like his mother and his family took care of the funeral arrangements. And so for me, Again, I want to emphasize that PTSD looks very different for everyone. It's not the same. So I'm talking to you about what my experience was. And again, I didn't know what I was going through was PTSD. I knew that I was irritable. Um, I was broken. And for, I would say, maybe about a couple of weeks after, I was still expecting for him to come. Um, I was lost, right? So I remember I started to drink a little bit more than what I used to. Um, and I remember that my daughter often would sit behind the recliner. I wound up moving to my mother's house, like I never went back there, so she would sit behind the recliner, and she would say, "Oh, Gucci is upset because even is not here. Even didn't come out." Now, for context, this was my daughter's first major loss. Um, so I had to make sure that I was there for her. So after that, I went on autopilot. He was taken to the Dominican Republic, which I went, and he was buried there. And when I came back, I was just like, I need to find an apartment. I need to get a job because I wasn't working. So what does living on autopilot mean? You wake up, you go to work, you act like normal. So for me, I didn't have a job. I was staying with my mom again. I would take my daughter to school. I would look over my shoulder. To me, I felt like everyone looked like the person that did it. Um, for a while, I wouldn't take any public transportation. It was an adjustment for me to drive anywhere by myself. Um, but I was functional. I was functional, but inside, I was, it was a quiet pain. I didn't really talk to anybody on what I was feeling. I could have because, I have people that wanted to support me and be there for me. But it was just something that I needed to, like, I was still in shock and I was experiencing the seven stages of grief. What are the seven stages of grief? And I'm going to read what I have here because I want to make sure that I don't forget any one of them. So it's shock and denial, pain and guilt, anger, bargaining, depression, the upward turn. So that's like the calm, adjusting to the reality, and reconstruction and working through what you have been going through, what you've been battling, and accepting and hope. It's important to note that these stages are not linear and grief is not linear at all. Grief, one of the biggest things that annoys my soul, it annoys my soul, is when people say that time heals all wounds. That is absolutely false. You just learn how to live with that person not being there. In short, grief is the price you pay for loving someone. And the more you love that someone, the more in depth of the grief that you will experience. And I tell you this because this is not the first major loss. 9 years later, married for about a year, I lost my husband in a car accident. And I would have never thought that I would go through that again. When I met my husband, I was like, he is the light at the end of the tunnel. This, everything that I wanted in a man that he had. And it was a long distance relationship where I'll talk about that in a different episode where I mean, down to holding hands, we would talk. There was no toxicity. There was no screaming at each other. There was no controlling. There was no physical abuse. There was no emotional abuse. Like we were we were two puzzle pieces that came together. Yes, I was 11 years older than him. So I never expected that I was going to lose him the way that I lost him. And it was then his loss that triggered all the pain and opened up all the scars from this loss in 2011, where I realized that I never grieved. I never went through the healing process for this. I went immediately into autopilot. I was a functionally depressive person, which is something that people do not speak about. Being functionally depressive means that you are depressed, but you function. You get up, you go to work, which is equivalent to being on autopilot. You get up, you go to work, you smile, you may go out and you may do a couple of things, but inside you're broken. You when you are behind closed doors, it's a different story. Like I certain things would trigger me. And I was just sad. I was sad when I experienced the first one. Like I was just sad. I was living on autopilot. I was afraid. It was a lot. It was a lot to undergo, but I buried myself into getting my daughter to where she needed and getting a job and making sure I can give her the things that I was giving her and continue being able to buy her stuff. And I had support from my family because it was rough. It was rough. Um, Things didn't go the way that I thought it would go. Like his family, there was his family was they loved me. I remember he had an aunt where, oh my God, may she rest in peace. Um, she, at least I would like to think with how she treated me. Like she was crazy with me. Like we were in DR. Like she was very protective of me, and his family really did treat me well. But his mother, on the other hand, she suffered dearly the loss of her only child, and she blamed me. She blamed me because it was my daughter we were taking to school. Um, and a lot of things happened from her aspect to mine towards my character after that that contributed to me feeling guilty, um, me questioning. I mean, I would close my eyes and I can see what happened, right? Um, but I couldn't dwell. I couldn't dwell on that. I had to put myself together. I didn't have time to deal with what I was feeling. I just knew I needed to move. I needed to get a job. I needed to do everything, and um, I did. I found a job, and through the victim advocacy program, they were able to get me at the top of the housing list for an application that I had put in when I was pregnant with my daughter, in 2002, and I was able to get an apartment. But even that was a struggle because there were certain things that I would look at that I wouldn't necessarily look at if I wasn't this scarred. Where I was like, is somebody hiding? Could somebody hide there? Can somebody look there? I mean, you would walk up behind me, and this is part of PTSD. You would walk up behind me, and I would flinch. If someone got in the elevator and I felt uneasy, I wasn't getting in the elevator. I would look out the peephole to make sure that no one was there. I would try not to go out at night because I was too scared. I would sit in the car for minutes and hours, then say, okay, okay, I gotta get out of this car. I gotta go to my house. And if I went out, I would make sure to try to be back before the sun went down because I was so scared. If there was too many people in a place, I couldn't take it. I would, I remember going to the year after, I remember going to the Puerto Rican parade with my niece and her boyfriend at the time. And there was like a little discussion, an altercation between him and someone else. And I immediately, my whole body started to tremble because I was like, he's gonna take out a gun, he's gonna shoot us. Like, so what did this do to me? This broke my trust for everything, not in people, but the walking nonchalantly without a care in the world, right? The walking or having the mentality of thinking that this would never happen to me. This is something that you saw on the news. This is not something that I would experience and something that I would see on the news. I'm like, damn, that's rough, right? So it really broke the person that I was before all of this happened. I didn't have the same trust with just simply going to the grocery store. I didn't have the same trust with simply going out to throw the garbage down the disposal. I didn't have that. And if anyone would walk too close to me, I'm flinching. I remember when I went to the Dominican Republic, to spend time with my husband, he knew about everything that happened, but he never saw it in action. We were in one of those carritos that they sell like frituras and stuff over there, and it was close to the alcarrizos, and this gentleman came close, and as soon as he came close, I flinched and I started shaking, and he thought that he touched me, and I told him to say no, 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 and so he grabbed my hand and he gave me a hug, and I told him in his ear, I was like, tengo miedo. I was like, tengo miedo, and so he didn't understand too much what PTSD was, so I broke it down for him. He was like, he would validate what I felt. So, um, transitioning from survival to healing. So again, PTSD PTSD is not always what you think it's gonna be, and it's not always flashbacks or tears. Is your physical reaction, um, or the lack of trust and what you what was your norm. So your normalcy is no longer a norm because you see it in a different light when you experience some form of trauma. So, for instance, like if you have financial trauma and then all of a sudden you are almost losing absolutely everything and you are able to get yourself back up, you're never going to spend your money the way that you spend it before because you've experienced this traumatic event. So you're more mindful of it. So for me, it was, I experienced this. People, I don't know people. I don't, I was very like trustworthy with people. And if people would come up to me, if they needed help, I would stop. And it's not to say that everyone is like that, but that's what PTSD did. That's what this event did to me. And that was my form of PTSD. So it was like it shut me down. It shut me down. Um, and I'm the one that's defending. I'm the one, and I still will, right? But then I have that mentality of I don't know if this person has a gun. I don't know if this person has a knife. I don't know if this person is experiencing some mental health issues or what's going on in this person's story. So let me think about what I'm going to say, right? And that should be the case with everyone, even if you didn't, especially with today's society, with how everything is going. But back then in 2011, we didn't have everything that was going on now. So I was very trustworthy. Like I would come home whenever I went out at 2, 3 in the morning and not give a care in the world if there was somebody hiding behind the stairs or if there was someone waiting for me. I That's what PTSD was for me. Like I didn't want to go out anymore. And if I went out, I never went out alone, and I made sure that somebody would always come and take me back to where I needed to go to. And I wouldn't go out at night with my daughter. And to this day, it's not as bad as it was. But if someone gets too close to me, you best believe I'm like, what are we doing? You're a little bit too close. When I get up early and I have to go outside, whether it's at 5 o'clock in the morning, the sun is down, I'm rushing down the stairs. I practically just throw myself in the car and close it because I'm scared that someone's gonna come from behind and like grab me. So it's still there. It's not as bad as it was before, but it is still there. Um, so I had to learn that my brain wasn't broken. I had to learn that me freezing was my reaction to such a traumatic event, and I had to learn that it wasn't. I did what I needed to do in the moment as a mom to protect my daughter, and I should not have guilt on what happened to him because the what happened was supposed to happen, how it's supposed to happen, as hard as that may be, and my daughter and I were supposed to survive that event because that changed us both into a different way, and we are who we are today because of that. That's only one element in my life that has made me the person that I am today. So before I go into the reflection, I do want to provide, and I'm going to drop it down in the description. There's several resources out there that you can utilize when you experience grief, trauma, or anything that's very traumatic to you, or you're a victim or you're a survivor. There's resources. I didn't know of these resources because I didn't have that mentality of looking for that. I didn't want to do therapy. I didn't want to do that. The only thing that I knew of was the victim advocacy, and that was because of the whole legal process of trying to find the person that did this. So there is support for survivors and victims. So you have the Murder Survivors Handbook, which is a website where you go and it gives you a list of resources and books that you can use for your healing journey. It's real life stories, it's tips, it's resources, super useful. So if you have experienced this or you just started going through this, even if you're still in your healing journey, this is something that's really useful for you to look for. Survivors of Homicide. It's a nonprofit or a nonprofit or I can't speak. A nonprofit organization that is free. It is located in Wethersfield, Connecticut. And their website, I couldn't tell if it was, even though they're located in Wethersfield, Connecticut, if it was a national program where support everyone, no matter what state you're in. But it also has useful information, and all their services are free. So take a look at that if anyone wants to. And then you have the National Center for Victims of Crime, which is the center that provided the advocate that went with me to court. That was there supportive, that got me into therapy because I did go to therapy at first, but I was like, that's not for me. And that was the support that they gave me in getting me the housing apartment for me to move away from where I was living at the time because he was from there and he just knew too many people. And I feared for my life. I'm not even gonna sit here and deny that I feared for my life. Um, and they're very helpful. Immediate crisis support. You have the 988 Lifeline. That's something that is 24/7 that you can contact if you need immediate crisis support. For more targeted support like grief and trauma, you have Grief Share, which is a faith-based program that's located in Kansas City, Missouri. And although it's in Kansas City, Missouri, if you feel like that's the type of resources that you would like, reach out to them. Maybe they can offer you something that they have here, or maybe they're nationwide. I don't know because when I went on the website, it didn't give information on it being nationwide. Then you have the Dougie Center and National Traumatic Center Network, which is family support for trauma and grief. That one's located in Portland, Oregon. Again, these are all resources that you can go, and I'm going to link them in the description. Um, and even if it's not national, I can almost guarantee you that they're going to be able to give you information or give you or it could be a starting point for you to find something that's local near you. um, the Center for Loss and Life Transition. So this is a center that provides education on grief and provides support. So like, what do you do now? What happens now that I've experienced? How do I move on? Do I go to therapy? What is it that I'm feeling? Especially if you don't know about the 7 stages of grief, I didn't know. I learned that at my second loss. I learned that at my second loss. And personal coping strategies, there's things that you can do if you're not ready, because again, it's your recovery. You have to be ready to take these steps. No one can tell you to do it. No one can push you to do it. You have to do it, right? It took me 9 years. And that's because I had another loss. And that's when I realized, like, and even after that, it took me a little bit to realize what I was going through. Like that, it was dealing with the two losses at the same time because I didn't heal from the first one. And that is okay because I don't think that I was ready to heal. I think that, those wounds were there. That's why I froze. That's why I was living in autopilot. That's why I was functionally depressive because I needed to do that to not focus. My brain wasn't ready to heal. My brain wasn't broken. It just wasn't ready to heal. And you also have your professional support. Psychology today offers a lot of ways for you to filter what type of therapy you would need locally, according to your insurance. So these are really resources that you can use when you're ready. And you have your community support. What I say about community support is not communal resources. What I'm talking about is your family, your friends, anyone that's going to listen that you have close to you, right? You always need to have that one person that you can speak to. And for me, it's one of my best friends where I can open completely with her. And she works in social services, so talking to her helps me, um especially to kind of feel at ease and validate what I'm feeling. So that may look different for you, and that's perfectly okay. So in today's reflection, what I went through, I would not wish that on absolutely anyone. However, it did teach me that survival is not weakness, it's courage. It's choosing to wake up even when you want to disappear, which I wanted to disappear. I was like, Diego, tierra, trágame. Because I never thought, if you would have asked 9-year-old me that my life would look like the journey that I went through, I would have said absolutely not. I thought that I was going to be married by 25, have kids, have a career, but that wasn't what was in line for me. It's choosing to breathe even when it hurts, and eventually those breaths, those tiny moments of strength, that becomes your healing. So remember, there's always light at the end of the tunnel, and you are in control of your healing journey and your healing process when you are ready. If you feel that there's someone blocking you, move them to the side. You have to make sure that your cup is filled and that you are mentally and emotionally ready to heal. Don't let someone tell you that they know what you're going through. Everyone's journey is different. Don't let someone tell you that you should get over this by now. Absolutely not. Grief is not linear. There's no timestamp on it. There's to this day, every time I fly to the Dominican Republic, I see my husband when he used to pick me up. Everything reminds me of it. Everything reminds me of him. What's the difference versus that back then when it first happened to now? Back then, I would cry hysterically because I couldn't. It was a shock for me. Now, the memories that I shared with him, everything that triggers a memory, is a happy memory. It's my treasure because he gave me really good moments. So, thank you for joining. I appreciate you watching episode 2 of Rise Above. If this episode spoke to you and you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, follow, and share it with someone. Like the purpose of this is to inspire people, to give them some hope on whatever they may be going through, and that they see pieces of what I've experienced in them, where they can take that and resonate with it and just help them move a little, even if it's 2 steps forward. No matter what you've been through or what life throws at you can always rise above it. Always. Thank you for watching.